think I was just at a stage where I just finished a summer season in Cornwall and I didn't know where else to go. Like I'd done the ski seasons, I'd done a bit of Europe, and I thought, I'm going to go somewhere a bit further. I'd worked with a few Australians and Kiwis through the time, and I wanted to go and just check it out.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Regional Western Australia is still an untapped oasis for many interstate dwellers, but it's awash with extraordinary wineries and restaurants that make a huge contribution in regards to the state's food identity. What's it like running the kitchen of one of the best regional restaurants in Western Australia? Dean Wood is the head chef of Smallwater Estate Winery in Western Australia. Dean, how are you?
I'm good, Anthony. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to get you on the show. You're at an amazing venue that's won many accolades. How are things at the moment?
Yeah, good. Yeah, we've just won a few more awards for the wine, which is always good. We're nice and busy, building up for summer. Yeah, it's going well.
You've been there for just a couple of weeks now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, so I've been up here just about a month now. The restaurant was actually closed for a couple of years due to COVID. So I've taken it on as a sort of a collaboration with Smallwater Wines. And we've had really good local support starting out. People obviously wanting something in the area to open up and do something a bit different. Being in the country, it's fairly dominated by pubs and cafes. So yeah, I think it's been something that's wanted to have something a little bit different out here.
Tell us a little bit about the region and the produce that you're tapping into from it.
We're here. Obviously, we're based in Donnybrook, the winery, but we have access to the Southern Forest foods as well, and even just around us now, there's orchards, so there's plenty of fruit, which is Donnybrook's apple town is famous for that, and endless supplies of vegetables. We get avocados coming through now, and in terms of meat, we've got lamb. It's plentiful over here. We're spoiled, and we also have Marin dams on the property, so I've got free access to Marin, which is incredible, really, for a chef.
Give us a sense of sort of what you're cooking there at the moment. I know it's early days, but is there a dish or two that you can tell us about that sort of exemplifies what you're doing?
Well, we've got a small share menu and just a couple of mains. It's a really small kitchen, and it's just me in there at the moment. Luckily, it's only a 30-seat venue, but we do have an outside area that we're planning to open up this summer, which is another 30. See how I go. One of our dishes that's gone very well, that's I guess somewhat of a signature, use a better word of mine, was rolled pork belly. So we're getting pork belly from Plantagenet Porks, Mount Barker at the moment, through Donnybrook Butchers. And it's almost like a pancetta type cure. We rub through the middle. We just leave that for half an hour and then roll it up, dry the skin off, and run it through the oven about an hour and a half at 160, then another 30 minutes at about 190, and then just let that chill, rest on the bench, and then we put it in the fridge uncovered overnight, and then they just get sliced up and through the oven on a high heat, like 215, 220, and it just crackles up beautifully. You got this fennel, star anise, bit of sweetness and brown sugar through the flesh, and then just the crackle on the outside, and just, it's just a winner.
Is there pressure in regards to what you create on the menu to sort of go with what the winery is producing?
Yeah, I try to keep it fairly reflective of the wines as well. I'm not doing anything too outrageous flavor wise. It's fairly European based, lots of fresh flavors. That's the flavors of the wine as well. We've got Chardonnays and Zinfandels, which is really popular. The rosé, which is made with Zinfandel grape, is the the one that's winning an awards at the moment. So yeah, I work into those flavors, you know.
Well, I want to explore a little bit more into what you're doing there and what you plan on doing as we get to the warmer months. But you spent the last 6 years at Taylor Street Quarters. Tell us a little bit about that project.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So my partner is originally from Esperance, Sophie. We met in Melbourne many years ago now, and we were in Margaret River, I believe. I was working at Maury's there with Tony Howell, with the legend. The opportunity came up for, it was called the Tearooms at the time. It was the Tearooms, what they always know it as. And Sophie and her mother, who had some nostalgic value in it, sort of suggested we should go for it. So yeah, Sophie's mum, Jane, sort of funded the project, and Sophie and I were down there running it. Obviously, Jane was running it as well on her side of things, but Sophie and I were living down there on the floor and, making it happen. Yeah.
It's a historic building there. Tell us a bit about its history before it became a restaurant.
Before it became a restaurant, it was an old nurses' quarters. I believe it was moved from Wellard, a town called Wellard, in the 80s, but the building itself's from 1933 from memory. The main part has had a few little extensions over the years. So yeah, it was moved down to Esperance. It was a nurses' quarters from then, in the late 80s, and then became a tea room, I think, just a few years later. And by tea rooms, it was small, but it was just one part of what it is now. It's we were licensed for 300 people down there, so over the years, got a liquor license and all of that. So yeah, certainly changed a lot.
Tell us a little bit about Taylor Street, and what was it like working with your partner, but also what were you guys doing?
It always comes with its challenges. When we started up, our daughter was 18 months at the time, and we were fortunate enough that it had a caretaker's cottage on site, so we were living there and walking in and out as we could. That was, always quite interesting. And the first couple of years, as you do when you've got stars in your eyes, we went pretty hard. We were doing breakfast, lunch and dinner, and open 6 days over summer, and yeah, it was pretty wild. I don't know how we did it now, looking back. It's just a blur. No, it was good. We started out doing what we wanted to do, which wasn't, to everyone in the community's taste. So, I don't know, we probably went through about 10 menus in the first couple of months to try and, find the middle ground that can get people in the door, but also it's not sort of selling your soul as such. So we found a good balance. We did really well. We were really popular. We introduced a few things like ceviche and croquettes and, like stuff that's popular in the city that hasn't got quite down that far yet. But also at the same time, lunch was fish tacos and burgers with chips, and all done well. Like, we were making burger buns for the first few years, so COVID took the wind out of us. We were doing it all right.
What triggered the move to Smallwater Estate?
Like you said, we had the Taylor Street we've been doing for 6 years now, and our lease was 5 and 5 and 5. So after 5 years, we decided that we would sign the lease, but with the intent to sell the business. It was getting big for us. We had a second child during our Taylor Street years, and we decided that at least one parent needs to not be working weekends. We decided that we'd make the move. And also, we found Esperance is beautiful. We loved it there. It's just we're not used to the remoteness. It's a long drive for another populated town. So we sort of had our dreams at Margaret River. So we were there for a year before we moved down to Esperance. We reflected on that a fair bit, and decided this is the sort of area we want to be in. We still want to live in the country, but be close enough to the cities if we wish to go and do things.
It's an amazing part of the world, and I want to explore that a bit more and what you're going to do shortly. But take us back to when you were young. You mentioned from Cornwall. Take us back there. What was it like growing up, and what sort of role did food play for you?
Oh, it was amazing. So I grew up in a town called St. Ives, which is beautiful and fairly well known. It's definitely a tourist town. So, there's, I don't even know now, it must be a couple of hundred eateries in a fairly small town. And I reckon it's a bit of a rite of passage for all kids to start out in hospitality there, because jobs are plenty. So I think I was probably 12 or 13. I started washing dishes for a bit of money on the weekend, and I enjoyed the atmosphere of the kitchen. It was always crazy. There was always different personalities. I don't even know how many different nationalities I was working with at one point, and eye-opening. And the dishy job back then as well. It's changed slightly over the years, but I was gutting sardines, debearding 20 kilo the mussels to shift, straining stalks, to do everything, and then clean down the kitchen because everyone sleeps. You're made to work, but I loved it. Like, I just got into it, and when I finished school, I went to college to study music, of all things. And much as I was enjoying that, I was doing evenings in the kitchen still, and managed to move myself up from the dishes to entrees and pizzas. And I was finding that I was enjoying that more than I was going to college. So I stuck with that. And being in Cornwall as well, I didn't realise until I'd done a little spin in Europe and then came back around, but the produce there is just everywhere as well. You can drive and pick up what you want for the day and be back at work in time to prep it. Everything's no further than 20 minutes away. It's just incredible.
In the early years, what were the really sort of important venues and people that you worked with as you built your career?
For me, it wasn't until I came back in my early 20s. So I did a little spell around Europe, going back and forth. The first place I went that I felt was out of my league was it's a place called Bustafers in Truro, which was the capital city. I just moved back there, and I'd seen that they were advertising for chefs, so I went in and applied for the lowest role they were offering. They're called again. Thinking that it wasn't quite up to the. It was a Rosette winning restaurant at the time, so I felt it was beyond me, but I'd give it a go. I went in, did my trial. The head chef, Rob Duncan, was just unflappable. He's just one of those people that you can't read him. He was there, he was getting on with things. And I didn't know if I was doing a good job or not. I'm getting on with what I was told to do. Then when I sat down with him at the end, he was like, "Do you want the job?" And I was obviously like, "Oh, yes." But he was like, "Do you want the commis chef job or do you want the chef de partie job?" And I was like, "Am I good enough for the chef de partie job?" And he was like, "Yes, you can obviously cook. You obviously know what you're doing. You can have the chef de partie job." So I started from there, and then 6 months later, I moved up to junior sous chef. And then about another 6 months after that, Rob moved over to a seafood restaurant called Indaba at the time. I think it's called Huck now. And me and the sous chef from Bustafers moved over with him. Started that venture, and a year after that, we won a rosette there as well.
Take us into that kitchen. Are there any dishes or techniques that stand out from that time that you can share with us?
Oh, yeah. Indaba was, again, just a different experience. It was solely seafood. Solely, we had to have a couple of offerings, but we would get fresh fish daily. We'd get a phone call in the morning to tell us what was good in the market. We'd order it and be there by the afternoon. We'd leave some whole in a display and then prep down the rest. And we had a live crab and lobster tank as well. People would choose out what they want. We'd walk around and grab them and kill them to order. We'd go a knife through the head and then into the steamer. So that was just an experience. And there were so many good dishes. There was I believe it's called Morley, the turmeric-based Indian curry. That was pretty incredible. I'm just working with fresh fish every day. Hake became a constant favourite of mine. I learned how to fillet fish properly, because obviously we had them whole in the display. And going out to the fish markets as well. I think we'd go out every month or 6 weeks, get up at 4 a.m, drive to Newlyn to the fish markets and just be part of it. It's incredible.
You briefly mentioned that before this time of rising the ranks in Cornwall, you spent some time through Europe. Do you have any stories of what that was like and the influence it had on you?
Oh yeah, that was something different. At that point, I believe I was working in kitchens as a job. I was just having fun. My first stint was in Andorra doing a ski season. I worked at a hotel. We got the only English person in the kitchen at the time. Everyone else was South American, or the head chef, Jesus, was Mexican. That was a different world. I went from there and I did a bit of private chefing in the French Alps for a top 10 rich list Englishman. So basically I lived out in France at his apartment, and was basically on call to cook for multiple guests whenever they needed me, which included driving over to Switzerland, and it was all very crazy.
Do you remember a particular dish or feast that you had to do while working as a private chef?
There was we had his business clients out, which included a couple of lords, and how much I can say, really.
Tell us about the food.
I'm going back quite a while now, but we had smoked duck breast with balsamic strawberry salad. We did I keep saying we, it's just me. We did a lobster thermidor with pickled apple and walnut, almost a Waldorf type salad for that. And then a dessert was top of my head here, I think it was a vodka infused lemon mousse with blueberry macarons. Just different. Yeah. Wish I still had photos of this stuff.
What's it like being in a role like that, sort of where you're almost on call and, your day could be almost anything?
It's completely different to what I was used to. So obviously, you're called up and you just got to rush to the supermarket and buy what you need. Luckily in the French Alps, everything was coming up from France. It was always good produce, expensive, but good. You're constantly thinking on your feet. And I remember his partner went through a week of basically on a raw diet. So that was interesting. Constantly having to learn to accommodate different needs, which was, helped me build some experience for later in life, for sure.
What led to the move to Australia?
I think I was just at a stage where I just finished a summer season in Cornwall and I didn't know where else to go. Like I'd done the ski seasons, I'd done a bit of Europe, and I thought, I'm going to go somewhere a bit further. I'd worked with a few Australians and Kiwis through the time, and I wanted to go and just check it out. It's fairly random, really, but 10 years later, I'm still here, so it's obviously the right move.
What was it like when you first arrived? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I went straight I flew into Perth and went to stay in the backpackers in Cottesloe. And it was just, I didn't really know where I was or what I was doing. The next, maybe 2 days later, I went to Fremantle and I fell in love with Fremantle. Beautiful little city. I started applying for jobs and going around. The food was quite different to, there was obviously all like the classic Italians and stuff, but I think it was it Barchetta on the Cottesloe harbour front there? On beachfront, sorry, the harbour. I was introduced to the world of Australian brunch, which was, it's very different. Certainly not your greasy spoon fry up that I was used to. Pretty cool, avocados on toast. It's pretty, yeah. It's nice to see breakfast being a bit fresher.
Where did you find your feet in Perth?
I ended up living in South Fremantle, but I found work at Mosman's restaurant in Mosman Park. One that I don't think is there anymore, but loads of good chefs went through there. The head chef at the time when I was there was Paul Zammit, who's had a few restaurants since then. Worked with Charlie Snadden Wilson, who's got his own thing now in Melbourne, Clover Wine Store. So worked with some really talented people there, and a beautiful restaurant. I think 2 weeks after I started, we were at the Crown for the Gold Plate Awards, where they won Best Seafood and Best Restaurant. You know, I thought it was a pretty cool job at the time, getting straight into an award ceremony. It was free food and free alcohol. You know, as a backpacker, that's always good.
You had such amazing experience of seafood when you were working in Cornwall. How different was the seafood here in Australia when you landed and getting used to that?
I think quite different. There seems to be quite different rules with, especially with shellfish and stuff, how you coming in frozen and stuff like that. But also you've got more access to things like prawns and that. One thing I did find is the fish flavors. Like, obviously we've got colder waters. I find there's more variety in the fish flavors in Cornwall than there is in Australia. But I think that's a palate thing. Over the years, I've started to be able to identify better. There was one point where, to me, snapper was snapper. Do you know what I mean? It didn't matter if it was pink, queen, or king. Snapper was the snapper. But yeah, over the years, I've managed to be able to identify the flavors better, and they're certainly different when I started.
You spent some time in Melbourne as well. Tell us about the experiences there.
Melbourne. I started out initially just working for a events company, which was pretty interesting. You spend the days in the prep kitchen and then off to this random events at night. So you hack them and organise. And then, you know, I remember one being on a rooftop for building in the CBD. My very first one was for BMW, the launch of their new futuristic cars. So we had to make all the food blue and silver, which was an interesting challenge. You know, we set jus in the shape of cars and put them onto, obviously, it was hot. It might have been Scotch. We glazed silver somehow. A little car-shaped block of jus onto the steak on the table, so it starts to melt in front of the guest. It's pretty impressive stuff. Like, it's clever. And then from there, I went to Co-Black Coffee Roasters and got introduced hard to the world of Australian brunch. And 700 covers a day with about 6 chefs just pumping out breakfast, but like a good breakfast. You know, like I do off the top of my head, zucchini fritters, prawn salsa. That was popular at the time, and we did a spanner crab omelette, Vietnamese style, and nam jim and featuring coriander salad. It's all, there was breakfast, then there was the non-traditional breakfast. Ham, hock, and leek croquettes. I'm pretty sure we had on with a poached egg as well. It's all, it was cool. It was fun. It was definitely different.
What did you take from your time in Melbourne?
I think I just took a lot more diversity. Like, I managed to learn, especially doing the catering as well. Like, it was, almost a different menu to every event, and being able to adapt and work in different places. Like, I feel very comfortable now, within reason, walking into any kitchen and being able to find my feed and keep up. I think I found, be able to be more comfortable.
Why did you move back to Western Australia?
I met my partner, Sophie, in Melbourne, and we fell pregnant. We were over in WA, in the UK, so we made the move back over to Perth and started out there. It wasn't a bad thing. Like, we'd both been there before. We were loving our time in Melbourne, but both coming from small country towns, we couldn't really see ourselves raising a child in the city. Yeah, that was where we spent our fun 20s.
You mentioned you spent times at Murray's with Tony Howell. Do you have any stories of what it was like working with him?
He was just the well-known legend. He's a WA celeb chef. Most of my stories with Tony is Tony stories. He's got to thank you. I remember, as well as the food we were putting out, we'd be there till like 2 a.m. sometimes, just deep cleaning and writing rosters and, having a couple of drinks. And he was just a great chef to work with. Again, he's very inspirational. He was just, he's definitely a crazy guy.
Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, you're now at Smallwater Estate Winery, and you're only a couple of weeks in. But tell us a little bit about your cooking and your approach. Where does the creation begin with a dish for you?
It begins at the produce. Like, I'm changing the menu weekly at the moment. I keep a couple of favourites on, but because obviously I've come from working lunch and dinners, I found myself with more time just doing the winery lunches at the moment. So I'm able to go around and visit the farms, visit the roadside stalls, and start my week just going around and picking the produce and working from there. So Marin's featured a lot at the moment. There's a classic Smallwater Estate recipe from when they started out, however many years ago, for a Marin and Chardonnay pie, which I've been on for the it's old here the last couple of weeks still. So we've had that on here, and that's been a hit. I think a lot of people have been happy to see it back because they would have come to have it a few years ago and not been able to. So I put that on with my own slight twist to it, with a leek in there and some roasted garlics and extra flavour. But and again, with it heating up with Marin on site, I'll always speak to Marin because it's here. We'll look at doing something a bit more fresh. We've done some grilled Marin, roast garlic butter, fresh chili. Just something a bit different.
What sort of impact has this change had on you, and the fact that sort of it's just you in the kitchen, sort of almost doing what you want?
Oh, it's very different at the start. The freedom is incredible. Like, it's like I say, I can just go for a drive and choose what I want to put on. Whereas Taylor Street, obviously, I had that to a point, but you're still trying to accommodate everybody. You've got to have your chips on the menu because people like chips. I'm not quite tied to that at Smallwater, which is great. It's got me more relaxed but more focused again on food. Like, I think especially post-COVID, because during the COVID months, the lockdown part, we went to takeaway. So we were still working every day, but our revenue went down like 90%. So we're still there every day, but not really, just making enough to pay the people that we kept on. So post that, it was just about keeping the business going. So, the focus was probably adjusted more to margins than it was about creating specials or doing necessarily what you wanted to do. So I feel like I've got a lot more freedom when it comes to food now. And again, just being in a food bowl in WA, it's just like I'm spoiled for choice.
Yeah. What's your plans for the next year or so, sort of as the menu develops? And you mentioned there'll be an outdoor area as well in summer. Do you have a plan on where you want to take things?
I just want to keep building it up. I want to obviously get it busier. Like, we've had a great local support, but it would be really nice to see the tourists coming through in summer. The menu can only be a certain size. Like I said, it's a very small kitchen, but I certainly want to bring it up. It's a casual venue. It's never going to be fine dining, but refined, casual, certainly. I think we're sort of there now. It's just so they change it weekly. So I've got a pretty a good range of what I can do, and I just want to bring it to want to make the food and restaurant side of it as popular as the wines.
Well, you have a very unique opportunity in hospitality where you are at the moment. What do you love about what you do?
I love the food. I honestly love the produce side of it. Like I don't think I've got the skills to be, but I'd quite happily be a farmer, I think. Find nothing more enjoyable than going down to the farms. So there's roadside stalls aplenty around Donnybrook. It's honestly just probably not the most enjoyable, but it's definitely a very enjoyable part of the job. And being able to cook in my own little kitchen, my own little world, being able to create, think about what I can put out for the weekend, I think it's definitely an enjoyable part of having something smaller.
Well, I know you've just started the role, but very much looking forward to seeing where you take it, Dean, and it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear just a part of your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, I will, absolutely, and thank you for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.